In this section, I'm going to take you through the KPIs and the key things that I am looking out for when I'm analyzing the account. Also, how to set up your ads manager to keep an eye on the key metrics. One of the key things that you want to be looking out for is focusing on what the main metrics are that you're looking at, what kind of trend analysis you're looking at as well, and when to take action and when not. So first of all, let me take you through Ads Manager and kind of what I do when I'm picking out the key metrics and kind of why I set those up as well. So what I'll do within this is to actually go ahead and create a new custom report. So I'm hoping you've already done this and you know how to do this. If not, let me show you how to do it as well as the key metrics that I'm selecting as well. So Facebook by default in Ads Manager allows you to have custom columns set up. So I've got one here called main KPIs, and there are some built-in ones as well. Some of them are useful for quick analysis, but I prefer to set my own columns up so that I can deep dive into performance. So if I go ahead into customize columns, I'll just quickly delete all of the default ones. So the way I like to set my columns up, so on the right hand side here, it'll be set top to bottom, which is then going to translate to left to right, is to place my key metrics on the left hand side that I want to be monitoring on a daily basis. There's some other metrics which I will also include, which I'm not looking at so frequently, but also what I do is to put all of the key metrics I want into one set of columns, and then whether I'm looking at campaigns or ads, those metrics are there for me as well. So the first one I'm looking at is amount spent. I then also want to be looking at my budget as well. The third one I'm looking at is website purchases. So let's pull that one up. I then want to be looking at my cost per website purchase. Get the right columns up. Type in purchase, cost per website. I also want to be looking at ROAS. So they are really the key metrics that I am looking at in Ads Manager. Now, at this stage, I then break it out into my funnels. So whilst these are the top line KPIs, the funnel starts with impressions, goes down to clicks, and then goes deeper into your funnel and your kind of tracked parts of that funnel. So let me explain. So here I'm going to type in impressions because that's the key thing that I want to be looking at top level alongside frequency. So difference between reach and impressions. Reach is how many people you're reaching, and impressions is how many times the ads were served. So the difference being that one person can have two impressions, for example, and that's why I prefer to have impressions and then frequency. So impressions is how many times my ad was served. Frequency is how many times that has been served to one individual person. Next thing I'm looking at is my click-through rate. With the click-through rate, you have three different options here. So it's really interesting to know what the differences are and when to use them, or perhaps when not to use them. So the link click on an ad is any click either on the ad, so someone hitting the read more when you've got long form copy, or clicking out into your website, for example. So link clicks will include all of that. Outbound clicks are off of Facebook. So for example, if you want to track how many people are clicking an ad and actually visiting your website, then you're probably going to track outbound clicks. CTR all is basically any kind of click on an ad off of Facebook, on Facebook, and it includes a whole range of other things that are probably not of interest when you're looking at e-com performance. So depending on the type of ads you're using, the link click-through rate is, or at least tracking the kind of links that are coming through from link clicks, can be useful, for example, if you're running Canvas ads, for example, and you want to track people that are interacting with the ad and actually open up the canvas, so you can look at link clicks and then look at outbound clicks to see how many actually then go off to visit your website, for example. So I'm going to include both outbound CTR and the link CTR as well. Another measure I'm looking at is CPM. So the cost per thousand impressions, it's one of the key metrics of determining how well you are targeting, how well you're performing the auction. Generally, you want it as low as possible. And also the type of objective plays a big part in here. So the CPMs that you'll get through video and page post engagement will be way, way lower than website conversion, especially when you go into really competitive niches as well. But it's a good metric to keep an eye on. The auction is driven off CPM, so you'll know kind of how well you're performing there. Cost per click is the next one. So I want to be looking at the cost I am paying per click. At the moment, we have only the option for cost per link click, not the cost per outbound click. This is a calculated metric based on your cost per thousand impressions. So unlike Google AdWords, which is all driven off of the cost that you're paying for every individual click, with Facebook, you're paying on impressions and your reach, and then there's a calculated number that comes back. But this is still a good metric for us to keep an eye on as well. And then I want to track the absolute numbers, so link click and outbound clicks, to see how well my ads and campaigns are performing. The other one that I would also be looking at is also looking at the landing page views. So this is more of a recent addition, and it allows you to look at how many people are actually clicking your ad and how many are firing the landing page event back to Facebook as well, to see how many people are exiting. So there may be some spam links that are going on, or maybe there's some page loading issues, for example. The next one I'm looking at, and a typical part of an e-commerce setup, is content views as well. So the way most e-commerce sites are set up is that you have your homepage, your category page, your product page, your add to cart event, your cart page, and then all the way through the checkout. And it's good practice to put your key pages under website content views. You can use a custom event if you want, but the most typical way of setting up is generally your product pages would have the website content views event attached, and maybe other key events as well. So that's the next level down on my funnel. And then after that, I want to have a look at how many people are adding to cart. So if I go to adds to cart, so if you go back down here, I'm now building out my funnel so I can track the absolute metrics here, all the way down to adds to cart. Then if it's installed, the next, so in fact, actually after you do add to cart, some e-commerce sites will also have a cart page event as well. This is not a standard event as per, for example, Shopify, but it's something which I prefer to have installed as well. So for this particular example, I've created a custom conversion event for the view cart page event, and I've made it part of the kind of add to cart events as well. So I'm going to add that into this. The next one is to initiate the payment. So let's have a look at website checkouts initiated, and the payment info is then the final step. So let's type that in. And then of course we have our purchase pixel, which we've already added further up. So at this point, that kind of completes my funnel up to the point of checkout. So that's my kind of next layer down of reporting. However, because as I mentioned before, I prefer my ads manager to have all the kind of columns in one report. You can split these out into multiple reports and save them as different options in your drop-down, but I prefer to have them all. The next thing that I'm looking at is my delivery insights. So we'll cover delivery insights in a separate video. Delivery insights is crucial to understanding what's working and what's not at your ad set level, your reach within an ad set, your overlapping, etc. Then I'm also generally including my video view metrics. So if you're not running video for e-commerce, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. Generally, I would always recommend to be running videos of your product, of maybe some brand or aspirational shots, or even testimonials. but this is where I now want to see how my videos are performing and see how far people are getting as well. I'll be tracking the 25 up to 95% generally, or if they've hit 95%, most will hit 100. I'm also looking at the 10-second video views metric. So 3 seconds, people may accidentally watch it. 30 seconds, your video is probably not that long, but 10 seconds is a good measure. One thing to also bear in mind is when people skip parts of the video, and let's say they get to the 75% mark, they may have actually skipped part of it as well. So actually 10 seconds is a different way of looking at engagement for your video as well. Then I'm looking at my ad level metrics. So the way the reporting setup works in Ads Manager is if these metrics don't apply at that level, they won't show. So for example, I want to be looking at my relevance score. It won't show at the campaign and ad set level, but then if I drill down to the ads level, all of a sudden it will pop up. So if I'm analyzing and I'm drilling down, I've got my columns set, then I know that relevance score will appear, so I can start using that as well. Alongside relevance score, you have to be looking at positive and negative feedback. Positive feedback is that people are clicking, engaging, not visiting your site and bouncing straight back. So all the positive kind of actions related to an ad. Negative feedback is absolutely the one you want to avoid. Negative feedback is the majority of it's driven by people explicitly saying they don't want to see your ads anymore. And that has a big negative factor on your ad and also your ad set performance. So you absolutely want to keep an eye on this and keep this as low as possible. If you are starting to see high negative feedback, it's really, people look at frequency, relevance score, etc. For me, if I'm starting to see negative feedback on an ad, that's a stronger indicator that I probably need to action something here as well. So that's something which you might want to bear in mind as you're doing your analysis as well. Now, some websites have leads and registrations. I generally like to keep an eye on this, especially for e-com sites that are taking in email as part of an exit pop-up strategy, or maybe using registration as part of their sign-up process. I want to be tracking these as well, and I want to see what kind of numbers we're getting back there as well. And one of the other things that I would also be looking at is the post engagement overall. So if I'm looking at ads, and also my cost per engagement. So where has it gone? Cost per post engagement. So as part of our graduation strategy, I want to see when I'm running page post engagement ads to see what kind of engagements I'm getting and also the cost I'm getting per engagement. So whilst it's not a key metric by any means, it is a good metric that I want to be keeping an eye on as well. One other one that I will add is also the average video view percent as well. So this gives me an indication overall of how my videos are doing as well. So average watch time in a numerical number, and also the percentage watched, and then the cost per 10-second view. So you can group them up here, you can leave them down the bottom, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to move these guys up here. And this is quite important, that grouping these metrics together will enable you to understand what's going on, and it has to be in a way that makes sense to you as well. So these are the metrics that I've set up here. So let's just apply that. And so if I scroll across, I can see my kind of key numbers here. So I can see CPA, ROAS, etc., all the way through. And these are the key metrics I'm looking at. Then if I'm at the kind of ad set, ad level, I'm drilling down and looking at these numbers down here as well. And then, as I mentioned, looking at video views, percentages, etc., all the way down. Now, if you noticed, I'm not getting relevant score, high negative, low negative feedback, because that's at the ad level. So I can see my cost per 10-second view, all the way down, cost per engagement, website leads, not that many going on. Once you do this, then save your columns. So if you hit the save button here, I usually call it main KPIs, but I've already got one already, so I'm going to call it my core KPIs. Once I save that, then it appears here. So going back on this example, let's say, for example, you want to only show the video views and add maybe CPA and things like that. Then go back in, customize columns, remove the ones you don't want, hit apply, and then save it as what, CPA for video views, etc. Once you've created your custom view, you can also set it as default. And the good thing about this is every time you then come in and analyze your account, you go down into campaigns, ad sets, ads, they're the metrics that are going to be in place. So let's just hit default there. So now I have my overall account view here. If I go into the campaign level, I can then see, let's filter that by delivery, that's fine. So I can see my metrics here. It hasn't gone back into my default, slight bug with Ads Manager, but I can quickly go back and realign my columns accordingly, and same at ad set level. If you notice at the campaign level, I didn't have the link for delivery insights because that doesn't exist in terms of the drill down at the campaign level. So I can see active and inactive, but the ad set level, I can then look at where the ad set is in terms of its learning and any insights there. We'll go through insights in a separate video. And then down to the ads level, I can then see the relevance score, the negative and positive feedback as well. So that allows me to drill down a lot faster without generally going in and switching different columns and kind of getting different insights into what's going on. So that's a real kind of high level view of setting up the metrics. Make sure that it's based on your preference. Mine is to have all the columns in one view. You might want to break it out just like Facebook have done here and be able to click through. But for me, it's far easier to keep that as one set of columns.